Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. The last video on this van, we were doing the IPR oil relocation kit. So we had a couple little things we had to take care of. We had a couple little odds and ends that we had to take care of. And we got everything put back on, as you can see. Lots of wiring, lots of pipes, lots of hoses, 6-liter stuff. But ran into a couple little issues along the way here. So the E-fuel down here caused an issue. The O-dog intake caused an issue. Little things here and there. So I'm going to show you what we did here to go over these little problems. So if you have an E-series with a 6-liter, upgrades are not your friend. All this stuff was really designed for the pickup trucks. I mean, obviously, other than the oil relocation kit here, it was designed for the van. But the O-dog intake, not designed for a van. This E-fuel system, not designed for a van. Well, it is now because I made it for the van, but a lot of this stuff is not made for a van. So, hey, we're gonna put this in and we're gonna run into some problems. We're gonna run into issues. We're gonna run into little stuff. So we had to think ahead when we did all this stuff, because it's like the O-dog intake interfered with the fuel lines, okay? So then the O-dog intake also had problems with this coolant line. And if you watched that video, you saw why I was having problems with the fittings. So the oil cooler relocation, okay? Yeah, that would work fine. That's perfectly fine, except for the fact that I'm not crazy with how the fittings were working up here. And it didn't like the fact that I put this huge E-fuel system down here either. So we ran into a couple problems here and there, and I'm just gonna basically go over these little problems with you guys and show you what we did and show you how to combat these little issues. A lot of this stuff is just thinking ahead, trying to figure out the difference between, say, a truck and a van, because while they are the same, there's a lot of little things that can drive you insane if you expect it to just be the same. So I'm gonna go over this, show you what we got done on here, and hopefully in the near future here, we can put a body on this thing. So that's what we're gearing up for here. And we're just gonna go over this whole thing, show you the little things that we had to do to make sure that everything was gonna fit properly. So like I said, the IPR oil cooler thing, we had to fix some stuff with it. We had to fix some stuff with this fuel system. We had to fix some stuff with the O-dog intake. So a lot of these little things that got changed needed some special finesse to make it work, because we are working on an E-series. So in the front of the engine here, you can see we have the whole belt pulley system installed. The power steering is installed. It's not filled up yet because it's kind of not hanging out over there. We did put engine oil in this. We did also retest the fuel system in this. It's still holding pressure. And just made sure that nothing was out of the ordinary. Now, we bought a new engine harness for this, which you can not see under everything. And they gave us a funky clip back here that holds this harness to the block. So I had actually steal the clip off of the old harness, because if you don't, it wants to rub the back of the tensioner over here. So we had to do that. The next thing here is, if you look down in there, you see that brass fitting right there? All right, so if you watch the O-dog video, that's supposed to come straight up. Well, what's straight above that? Yeah, an intercooler pipe. So if you have a van, you need to change that. So we ended up putting a 45-degree fitting on that and then re-threading the brass nipple back in. So that had to be done. So that was a change with the O-dog intake. Now, another problem we had with the O-dog intake, other than the fact that this wiring harness is pretty much smashed in here, is the fuel lines, which we kind of covered before. So the fuel lines on the van run underneath the alternator. You can see that it's tight there, not touching, which is a good thing. So we're gonna move on from that. However, this is the reason, because this O-dog intake is taller, we had to make this new fuel line to be taller to go up over. I'm not sure how the truck's fuel line runs, but I know that it wasn't going to work here. And then the coolant pipe here had to be worked out away from their logo here, which is covered by this coolant pipe. So that needed to be kind of massaged out a little bit. Now we covered all of that, and I still got some paper towels in here because of that leak from a while back, but that was no problem. But then the wiring harness here gets kind of smashed under the intake tube. Now I massaged that intake tube and it wasn't too bad. I just didn't want it pushing on the harness too horribly bad. But we ran into that as well. So those are the problems with the O-Dog intake on an E-Series. Now, I don't know if these are issues across with the truck as well. I don't know how much of this wiring harness runs back with the truck, but the E-Series definitely runs there. So we had those issues there. We did not have any clearance issues with the pulley. It looks awfully close, but it is not touching, so that's not a problem. And if it were to touch, your options are to either grind the intake a little bit, put a spacer behind the pulley, or grind the pulley itself. So those were the problems we had with the intake. The other problem we ran into with the IPR oil cooler was that this hose wanted to kind of kink on us. So originally, if you watch the IPR video, the hose went up and over and went down to this port down here. I didn't like it there. It wanted to rub on everything. You can see we have lots of clearance there between the oil filter and that line. And I isolated these two lines from each other and then tied them together. Now, these are not touching anything. There's lots of clearance for everything. The reason we made this change was because we added this 45. So this 45 got installed here. So it goes on the 45 that they supply you, and then we put a swivel 45 on here. And what that does is it makes the hose a little bit longer, but then also gets this hose to shoot back down instead of trying to hump it up and over and putting the 45 here, and it could possibly contact the body, which obviously isn't here. So this was the safer route for that. The next thing we did was we finished off the fuel system here, and I got to put the little booties back on, but made our own little wiring harness here, and it actually plugs into the factory harness down here. So we didn't have to splice anything. It's a little hard to see, but plugs right in. It's not just terminals shoved in there either. And we secured this so that it doesn't flop around or get into anything. We ended up tearing apart an old fuel pump to get that plug, which was interesting. So if you're in the market for trying to make your own fuel system and want to change your pump out to, say, a 7.3 pump, you can with a little bit of ingenuity. So those were the little problems that we ran into with that. And then obviously we talked about our bracket before to hold this to the block. We have no clearance issues with that or the up pipe. And we have no clearance issues with the up pipe in our fuel lines, which is wonderful. So this is why we went with the banjo fittings back here. So obviously you can see that the down pipe is installed here, and we have our drive shaft installed as well. So this thing's pretty much ready for a body here. Just going to go over a couple little tiny quick checks and make sure that we're not going to have any issues with this. So we still have to mess with this coolant line over here, but that's not going to happen until the body gets put on, because we need to make sure that the body is not going to interfere with this hose at all. And same thing with this guy here. So there's enough room here for this to kind of hang out here. And if we have to zip tie that over to the harness a little bit, we can. I still may move this heat shield down a little bit because we still, I mean, it's not super close, but it's kind of close. It's not worse than anything else. But transmission lines are installed, and we have them looped around on the front here because the goal is to get the body put on and then get this thing back in here and get it to run. The idea is to just make sure that we don't have any problems, because if we have to pull the body back off, it sure would suck to have to put all this stuff back on and then take it all back off because something's wrong. So We didn't lose too much transmission fluid out of the transmission, so we won't be adding any to it currently. The plan here is to do a transmission service once we get this thing to run again. So not too worried that if it's going to be a quart low, we're not going to be driving it anywhere. It's not going to sit here and burn itself up in the matter of a few minutes. But we are moving forward on the E-Series here, and hopefully we can get this thing all put back together here relatively quickly. So with all of that being said, I'm going to move everything out of the way here, and we're going to roll this thing out and try to get the body set down onto it. Trying to get the two-post lift freed up because it's been sitting on the two-post lift, and really need to get the body back on this thing and make sure that it's in good shape. Make sure we're going to fire up, plug everything back in. We got our harness plug down here. We have firewall plugs. We have the FICM stuff. We have computer stuff. Just plug everything back in. It's not a lot of work to plug it all in. Just set the body down, put 4 bolts in it, drag it back in here. We're going to negate putting coolant in it, but we will be hooking up our heater hoses here because it's going to be easier to put the heater hoses on with the body up a little bit. So we'll be able to reach in there and get them put on there pretty easy. And hopefully a couple cranks and this thing will start. So we'll find out if it'll start a little bit later, but we're going to be putting the body on and getting this thing all put back together, so to speak. Get the steering shaft on, get the brake booster put back on, try to get the power steering kind of hung up and put a little bit of fluid in it so we don't burn the pump up if it does end up starting easily. And yeah, just basically set it all up so that we can get it to run. Let it run for 2 or 3 minutes. Make sure that it's going to even out a little bit, because if it starts and runs, then we're good. Let it shut down, start it back up again, see how it does, and hopefully we will be good. I did turn it over with the starter to get some oil fluctuating in there and get it moving around. We did fill up the oil filter housing, and we did pre-fill the oil rails inside the heads. So there's no computer technology connected to this currently, so we spun it over just to try to get that oil to start circulating, hopefully get that low pressure oil pump to pick up some oil, and we'll see if this thing is actually going to start, but it may not be today. So we'll see how this goes. We'll see how the body installation goes, and see if we can get this body set down on here, get all this stuff put back together, and we'll get it fired up, hopefully. So we're back outside again. We have the van body here. I don't know if you can see the frame out over in the back there. So we're going to get this lifted up, and I'm going to try and get the frame underneath this van body without damaging anything. So it's going to be mildly interesting. All right, so yeah, we're ready to bring this thing in here now. So we got this thing rolled underneath here. We took the time to actually spray the whole bottom of the body again, and we sprayed the whole top of the frame. So the joys of having these two separated is the fact that we can get in here and put some heavy stuff on the top of the frame where you can't normally get, and the bottom of the body, which would be usually covered by the top of the frame or your cross members where they're real close. So we took the time and sprayed all the surfaces that were pointing up. So we're going to spray this whole van again with our Corrosion X whenever we get this thing all put back together. But in the meantime, we wanted to go ahead and get everything sprayed that we couldn't get to with it put together. So now we're going to have the tons of fun of putting this thing back together, and we have our dollies up here, which I don't know if you can see them or not. So we might have to move the front end around. We might have to take the dollies back here and move the back end around. But we're going to start bringing this thing down, getting it close, and hopefully not destroying anything. So now we have all this stuff kind of hanging out here. Not super worried about this hose, more worried about this booster here. So we'll come down a little bit more and get a little closer to this booster and make sure that everything else is gonna clear here. So tons of fun. Well, let's see if we can get a strap on that. Yeah, that should work. So the only thing we have to worry about now is our transmission cable, this wiring harness, obviously our alignment here. We've got some stuff over here that's going to be a little tight, and some heater hoses and your normal stuff. So everything looks good so far. I'm going to check out this fuel filler. So we're definitely going to have to move the back of the van over, but I want to kind of get this front end situated a little bit better, because this is the most important. You know, we can get this front end down, then we know that we'll be pretty much home safe. Okay, so we've got the front end pretty well situated here. I'm going to go ahead and drop this off these jacks, take it in the back there, get that rear axle spun over, because we're getting pretty tight in the back here. So the back, this whole thing needs to shift a little bit, and that's the problem right now. So we're a little bit tight in the back, and it's because the back of the frame needs to move over. So we're going to move that frame over and reestablish ourselves here. So we've got the back of the van moved over, and I ended up not needing this because I can slide the back pretty easily. So now we get to come down some more, see how she goes. So we have touchdown in the back there. The back of the body is sitting, at least touching the frame, and we still have the front here. So we need to monitor the IPR lines, as well as any electrical or hoses that we have up here. And we're gonna go ahead and install our heater hoses. So they're a lot easier to install now. versus trying to do it later. So we're gonna go ahead, hook those up, but I gotta get some lubricant for the O-rings, and we're gonna lubricate the O-rings up and make sure that we're not pinching anything off, and make sure that everything's gonna fit. So everything should fit, but we've changed everything. So we lubricated the O-rings here for the heater hose here in the front, which I know you can't see. So we need to get these heater hoses put on, hopefully. Got one. And two. So heater hoses are much easier to put on when the body's up a little bit. So we did that, and we have everything looks like it's still out of the way. So we're gonna go ahead and I think go on down some more. We're gonna check our fuel filler again and make sure that it's not binding up over there, and continue down. So we have one ground wire here on this frame that's going to be a little difficult to get to once we come all the way down. So I'm going to tighten that up, and I think that we're going to be pretty good here. That IPR kit's really tight in there. So we're just going to come all the way down and see if it loosens up a little. So the body's set down on here finally, and real tight. Like, you got to watch that ICP sensor back there. Make sure you don't hit nothing. Got all kinds of stuff over here. So tight fit. You can see the fuel pressure regulator pretty easily, which isn't bad. That's what we like to see. AC lines fit in here pretty good. We have all this set up here. I've got the brake booster kind of mounted with the master cylinder there, and nuts aren't tight yet. We still have to attach the steering shaft. But I'm going to show you what we have. We ran into some problems here. Let's see if we can find somewhere to stick our light here. So the IPR kit gets real tight down through here. And you have to be real careful because these hoses get pinched between the valve cover and the body. Now I can push the body to the right a little bit, which I may do, which won't be too hard. However, yeah, it's a tight fit in here. So everything fit the way it's supposed to, which is wonderful. And then the IPR kit down here is fitting wonderfully, so we didn't have any issues with that. And it's hard to see the fuel pump down there. You can kind of make it out there, but it's not hitting anything either. So the biggest problem we had with setting the body down was the IPR kit. The heater hoses over here, they wanted to occupy a lot of the same space as the body of the van here. So I may try to push the body to the right a little bit. We'll see how it aligns with the body bolts here. So there's our body mount down there through that square hole, and it's pushed off to the one side pretty far. And I don't think we'll be able to push this body over to the passenger side any more than what we already have. So we might be kind of SOL on the moving this over a little bit. I'm not saying what we have there is bad, but it could be better. Now, it's hard to tell because these are obviously two different pieces here, but they look to be like the bolt hole and the support here is right in the middle and kind of in the middle. Looks like they might be offset to the passenger side a hair. So kind of look at the tire here, which it needs to roll back and forth because TTB. But the yeah, we don't want to push that body to the passenger side anymore. If anything, it might have to go back to the driver's side a little, but we can push it around a little bit, and hopefully that won't cause us any issues. But we got the body set down on here. We'll walk around here. So you can see we're set down on. You can see we sprayed everything here, at least the stuff that was hard to get to. So the body mounts are in the back here. They are just setting, but they are straight through here. Don't mind the light, that's a different hole in the bottom of the frame. So right through. But yeah, so we have the body sitting on here, and the fuel filler is in here, not bound up to anything. It's hard to see because it's dark, but it will move. It's not stuck there. But she's sitting down on the body here. Her body's on the frame, and that's wonderful. So we'll go ahead and get this thing kind of bolted down a little bit maybe, and get it rolled back in the shop, and get it prepped to start. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed a little bit of the problems we ran into with the accessories that we put on, and a little bit of problems we ran into putting the body on. It could have been much worse, but wasn't too bad. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully you can enjoy the rest of my videos and the ones that I hopefully have upcoming. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.